Well, I'm very glad to be able to share the experience of Argentina using the transformational change methodology. So, next slide, please. Next one. So first of all, I will go through a little bit of history. Oh, that's great. Thank you.
That's fine.
And a little bit of history of the ICAT initiative in Argentina back in December in 2018. We received the invitation to enter the initiative, and the next month we issued the acceptance letter. And in May of 2029, we had an initial mission that it was in Buenos Aires. We received the team of ICAT to start talking about how we could implement the first project of ICAT Argentina. And then during this year, from June to November 2029, we got in contact with DTU and INSPRA experts that they will help us throughout the whole project, but also with the ICAT team. And finally, during April and May of 2020, the PC8 of the ICAT Argentina project was signed and the project is started. And during 2020 and 2021, we work in three outcomes. The first three outcomes of this project. The first one was about circular economy. The second one was about disruptive technologies and disruptive behaviors. And the third one was to support the GHG estimations in the LULUCF sector. And we got technical support from DTU, ISPRA, and the ICAT team in all the three outcomes. But during the last 6 months of 2021, we realized that we needed to enhance the activities that we've been having with ICAT. So we signed an extension and we started working in another three outcomes. The first one was to develop the National Information System of Climate Change. We developed some inputs to finally develop this system. We also work in analyzing, assessing the impacts in GHG emissions due to changes in work modalities that occurred during the COVID pandemic. And we also work on the incorporation of mitigation perspective in the health sector. And what is very interesting that these were all needs that the technical team from the National Director of Climate Change of Argentina identified. So we were able to work on all these things and create inputs that were are very important for the transition to the ETF. Let's see if this works. Oh, great. So I'm going to focus on the second outcome of ICAT project in Argentina. That was about disruptive technologies and disruptive behaviors. So the main objective was to assess the mitigation adaptations measures involving these disruptive technologies and behaviors. And the main idea about this was assess some measures that for us were disruptive as to elaborate afterwards our long-term strategy. So we know that for these strategies, we need to think out of the box and think about transformational change and think about disruptive measures. So that was the main objective. So when we started working, we realized we faced two challenges. The first one was that we needed to look for measures. Okay, what measures we have happening in the world right now that are disruptive. But we realized that we needed to create some criteria. So what is really disruptive? What is really what we are looking for? So with the DTU team, we worked for some, we identified some criteria that was going to help us to have this long list of measures that are disruptive behaviors and disruptive technologies for us. So the criteria was that these measures should apply knowledge in a novel way, combines technology and innovative business model to create value, offers novel products, reduces greenhouse emissions if adopted at scale, and discontinued processes that emit large quantities of greenhouse gases. So with this criteria, we were able to know if the measures and the technologies and behaviors that we were finding in the literature, they were really disruptive. And another challenge that we faced at this first stage was that disruptive changes in habits is not used in literature. So we realized that when we were looking for disruptive behaviors, we were finding things that weren't really in the scope um, of this consultancy. So we realized that we were going to talk about disruptive innovations in a broad sense. So we had this criteria about what is disruptive for us, and we also had like not the differentiation between technologies and behaviors, but only disrupting innovations. Um, and after we started looking for this, and I'm just going to jump just a little bit forward, but we realized that for the technologies, the disruptive technologies, you need disruptive behaviors because people need to start applying these technologies. So you need disruptive behaviors to apply the disruptive technologies. Okay, so I'm going to go through how the whole plan, the work plan worked. So first of all, we identified the disruptive technologies. We did an international review. We got a long list of disruptive innovations, and we selected some of them taking considerations and criteria such as access to information, applicability in the Argentinian context, implementation period, and also mitigation impact and adaptation impacts. Um, so we got this very long list, and we needed to start to make it shorter so we could analyze, deepen our analysis in some of them. So after we selected some of that, taking in consideration these criteria I just said, we got like 15 innovations. So for these 15 innovations, we looked for case of studies. And we analyzed these case of studies, and we started looking for more information about these innovations. And then we got a short list of national implementation, actually, there were measures that could be applied to the national context. Because in this long list of innovations, we realized that some of them weren't they weren't going to work in Argentina maybe. So we didn't want to analyze measures or innovations that weren't going to be applied in the national context. So this is case studies gave us the information to analyze the measures in that way. Afterwards, we did some expert interviews because we also realized that we needed more information because we were analyzing innovations. And innovations, you don't find so much information about them in the literature. So we started working with experts, and we did about 14 interviews for some of those innovations to get more information. And that really helped us to see if to see the impacts of those innovations and how they were being carried out internationally, and to get more information about them. And afterwards, we decided to apply the transformational change methodology to some of them, but we couldn't do it for the 15 of them, so we just, I'm going to this. We just applied to 3 of those innovations, and we chose which innovations were them after we did the interviews, because we got much information, so we select 3 of them. And they were agroecology, green hydrogen, and electricity generation from non-conventional renewable sources. And so we decided to apply the transformational change, but as Karen mentioned, we can look at transformational change without looking at sustainable development. So we applied transformational change methodology and the sustainable development methodology. But I'm just going to focus on the transformational change methodology. So the objective when applying the methodology is to evaluate the innovation's potential to achieve transformational change, reduce GHG emissions, and climate change impacts, assess the extent of the transformational expected for each innovation, improve the design of actions, because we realize that sometimes you can have a measure, but it's not transformational because how is it designed? And maybe you can improve the design of the measure, and it can be transformational. Um, Also, the objective of the methodology is to allow comparison and prioritization of actions and help decision making, identify characteristics that describe in which manner the policies can drive change in the system. So we had two virtual workshops with the ICAT team that explained for us how to apply the methodologies. It was very useful because the methodology is very clear, it's very comprehensive, but sometimes you have questions on how to apply it. So it was very good for the ICAT team to be there so we could make some questions and to carry out the activity with us. So we started to, well, this is actually the same figure that Karen showed, but so the first thing that we needed to assess from this innovation was the transformational phase. And we actually, if I'm not mistaken, all the three of them, the three innovations were in the takeoff phase. And we also analyze the innovation vision and the barriers, drivers of each of them. And we needed to assess the impacts, the processes, and the outcomes. And as Karen mentioned, the category of each of them, technology, Asians, incentives, norms, and the scale of outcome and the sustainable nature of the outcome. This part was very challenging because you needed a lot of information as to know, for example, the adoption of technology that you needed, or which were the agencies that are driving, or that it's actually a barrier. So we needed a lot of information, but thanks to the interviews and the international review that we did first, this was much easier. And then we needed to rate each of these characteristics, and then we started to aggregate the rates of each of them. And we got the result of this is these matrices that actually I think that it's in the toolkit now, that the tool it's one of the outcomes of the tool, but back then in 2021 we didn't have it, so we made it this way. And you can assess for each of the measures the extension of the transformation and the likelihood of this transformation. So I'm not going to go over the detail of each of these results, but for example, for agroecology, the extension of the transformation, actually the likelihood of the transformation in Argentina is very high, is very likely to happen. But you need to tackle some of the barriers of this measure, and then once it starts happening, the extension of the transformation can be major. And I think we have one more matrix. There you go. And the green hydrogen. And the last thing about this outcome was to elaborate a proposal for a project, because we got all these results and we started thinking, well, what we can actually do with this and how we can start to see how to scale up these innovations, these measures. So we elaborated a proposal for implementing the measures, and that included 3 innovations that were related to agroecology or the electricity generation from non-renewables. And the proposal included agrivoltaics, urban and peri-urban food production systems that we actually applied the methodology to this measure too, and agroecology. And the main findings and conclusions for applying the methodology was that the methodology allows to evaluate the innovations, potential to achieve transformational change, improve the design. As I was saying, maybe you have measures that are not at the moment transformational, but you can find how to improve the design of these measures, allows comparison and prioritization of actions, because the methodology needs you to look for certain information and to categorize it in some way. So you have the same information for all the measures, and that's very helpful as to help decision making actually. It also identifies characteristics that describe in which manner the policies can deriving changes. And I think that the main barrier for the applying the methodology was the access to information and to have the information to, for example, for rating if, each of the characteristics. So that's it. Thank you very much.